She never wore perfume on Sundays. Said it gave her migraines, and yet there it was, something sweet and expensive hanging in the air like a damn confession. Our dog, Max, had the sense to avoid her those days, but today he wouldn't stop growling at her suitcase. And the best part? Her thing, yes, hers, folded neatly inside my gym bag, right on top of my protein shaker like a flag claiming occupied territory. I found it when I was grabbing my stuff before heading out for my usual Saturday morning workout. Now, to be clear, she was supposed to be in Nashville with her mom for a spa weekend. Instead, I found her lacy betrayal tucked between my lifting gloves and pre-workout, like some sadistic joke from the universe. I didn't say a word. I didn't flip the table or scream or confront her with righteous indignation. No. I made myself a protein shake, hit the gym, and spent the whole drive counting how many times I'd swallowed her lies like vitamins. She didn't even realize I'd been home that morning. Said she flew in late Sunday night, told me this while standing barefoot in the kitchen, hair wet from a quick shower, and smelling suspiciously like that same sugary fragrance Max was barking at. And there it was, again, the tiny tick in her left eye, the one she gets when she's scrambling to lie quickly but convincingly. I watched her pour coffee into the wrong mug, mine, and laugh it off with a kiss on the cheek. Sorry, baby. Habit. I smiled back. I made a joke about needing a lobotomy for our marriage to work, and she laughed like I was just being weird again. Maybe I was. Or maybe I was just finally seeing the details I used to overlook. Like the way she triple-checked her phone now before putting it down. Like how she used to throw herself into my arms after work, but now made a detour to the bathroom every single time. Or how her best friend Rachel started calling me just a little too often, always about how to help her heal, or how to support her through the hard times. Rachel, who always used to avoid me, now asking me to grab coffee, just to talk. That's when I knew the rules had changed. Not just for her, but for me too. She thought she'd broken something in me that would make me desperate to keep her. She mistook my silence for weakness. But I wasn't silent. I was planning. Watching. Letting her dig a hole so deep she'd need a passport to find the surface. I began responding to Rachel's calls, then her texts, and then her touches. Slowly. Carefully. I made sure I was just broken enough to seem available, but not so broken she'd suspect the game. Rachel cried to me about how my wife didn't deserve forgiveness. How she had always seen me, really seen me. And I let her believe that. I let both of them believe a lot of things. My wife believed I was healing, that I was trying, that we were reconnecting. I started buying her flowers again. I even suggested therapy, something she'd wanted for years. I let her see hope. I let her see a future. I even slept with her again. Every time she cried in my arms after, whispering how grateful she was that I was still fighting for us, I kissed her forehead and thought about how satisfying it would be to rip the foundation out from under her once she rebuilt everything on it. I became her safe place again. Her rock. Meanwhile, Rachel became mine. I made sure she did. And the more I gave her attention, the more guilty she felt. The more guilty she felt, the more confessions she made, drunk texts, voice notes at 2 a.m., things she'd never meant to happen. Turns out Rachel was the one who introduced my wife to the guy she cheated with. She set them up. He's so fun, she told her. You deserve fun. The irony? Rachel did it thinking my wife would get tired of him and run back to me. But now Rachel was falling for me. So here I was, sandwiched between two liars, and playing both like a grand piano. My wife didn't know I knew everything. Rachel didn't know I was using her. And me? I was just counting the days. Watching them both crawl closer, thinking they'd found someone who forgave them, loved them, needed them, letting them build their fantasies on my silence. Because forgiveness is a beautiful thing, especially when it's fake. Especially when it's the bait. It started with the candles. Not just any candles, those overpriced, French-sounding ones that smelled like a forest after a thunderstorm or some exotic flower that probably didn't even exist. She used to laugh at stuff like that. Now she lit them every night, claiming they helped her reset. I didn't question it at first. People change, and after everything we'd been through, maybe scent therapy was part of her healing. But then came the journals. Not one or two, but 5, each leather-bound and carefully labeled. Dreams, boundaries, energy shifts, gratitude, desires. I flipped through one while she was in the shower. Every entry was vague affirmations and self-love slogans, except for the desires journal, which she always kept in her work bag. That one, she said, was private. Fine. I told myself I didn't need to know everything. After all, we were rebuilding, and healing meant allowing space. I cooked dinner more often, brought her breakfast in bed on Sundays, listened when she talked about wanting to go back to school for something meaningful. She'd stare off into space a lot lately, mention things like aligning her inner frequency, and say she needed to be around people who respected her evolution. I wasn't sure what that meant exactly, but I nodded and told her I supported her. She smiled when I said that, those tight, closed-mouth smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. And she always looked away too quickly, like my words reminded her of something unpleasant. Then came the clothes. She swapped out her entire wardrobe, sensible cardigans and jeans replaced by silky blouses, tight gym sets, and heels she once said hurt too much. A few tags were still attached to the floor of the closet, expensive brands we never talked about buying. I noticed she changed her phone password, but chalked it up to a security update. I told myself I was being paranoid. Until one Tuesday morning when I kissed her goodbye and saw she had makeup on, subtle, tasteful, but still too much for someone working from home all day. I joked, "Got a Zoom date with the CEO?" And she laughed, but her hand tightened around her coffee cup like she wanted to throw it. "It's for me," she said. "I don't need a reason to look good anymore." That word landed heavy, didn't it? Like I used to be the reason. Like she was done performing for me. I told myself to chill. I even complimented her. She barely acknowledged it. Then, her phone started disappearing around the house. It used to be everywhere, on the couch, on the kitchen counter, by the bed. Now it was always in her pocket or face down on a different floor than the one she was on. I noticed her text went silent when I entered the room. The lock screen never lit up anymore. One day, I came home early and found her on the patio, whispering into her AirPods, laughing at something I wasn't part of. She said it was Rachel. I smiled. Said nothing. But Rachel hadn't texted me in weeks. She was taking time to reflect after we agreed to pause whatever it was we had. It didn't feel right, but I wasn't ready to dig. One night, she highlighted a passage in front of me and read it aloud. "Sometimes love isn't about staying. It's about realizing you deserve more than settling." I asked if that meant she was unhappy. She smiled, again, that half smile, and said, "Don't be so insecure." That's when I stopped asking questions, because every answer felt like a gaslight wrapped in therapy speak. And still, I wanted to believe. I wanted to believe this was a phase, a season, something she had to do to find herself. Maybe I was part of the destination. Maybe I was still her safe place, just waiting at the end of some emotional pilgrimage. But then, I found the parking ticket, folded under the visor of her car, dated the same weekend she was supposed to be at her sister's retreat. Issued in a town 2 hours away. She said the retreat got moved, that her sister wanted more privacy, that I wouldn't understand. I didn't argue. I just nodded and told her I hoped she had a great time. That night, she came home glowing. She smelled like hotel shampoo and unfamiliar cologne. And when she kissed me, it felt like a farewell rather than a welcome. She started locking the bathroom door. Started leaving early for errands that took hours. She never offered to pick anything up for me anymore. Even Max stopped sleeping in our bed. He'd whimper at the door but never go in. She told her friends I was supportive and doing the work, but I noticed they stopped inviting me to things. I was no longer part of her curated image of growth. I was the before picture she was trying to forget. And still, I kept my face calm, my voice even, my tone soft. I told her she was beautiful, that I was proud of her, that I was lucky. She said thanks. Not "I love you," not "me too," just thanks. And that was the night I realized she wasn't drifting. She was already gone. It was a Thursday. I remember that because it was laundry day, and she never touched the laundry unless it was to complain about how folding socks was a patriarchal scam. I didn't mind. Routine gave me clarity. So when I went to toss her hoodie into the wash and something clinked in the pocket, I figured it was loose change or maybe a lipstick cap until I pulled out a hotel key card. No logo, just a swipe of cheap plastic with a room number scrawled in faded black marker for 119. I stared at it for a long moment. It wasn't the object itself, it was the calm that followed. The absolute silence that bloomed in my chest like the eye of a storm. She had told me she was at a yoga class that night, showed me her new mat, even took a selfie in the mirror before leaving, all leggings and serene smiles. And yet here was proof that at some point in the last 48 hours, she was not downward dogging her way to enlightenment. She was horizontal somewhere else. I didn't make a sound. I finished the laundry, folded it neatly, put her hoodie back in her drawer, without the key card. That, I slipped into my wallet like a trophy. Later that night, she came home flushed, stretched, reeking of eucalyptus and superiority. I asked how class went. She said it was soul opening. I nodded. She talked about a new pose she'd nailed. I watched the way she twirled her hair while lying. Then she kissed me. The same lips that had probably been on someone else just hours ago. I tasted mint, not guilt. I said I was proud of her progress. She smiled like a child who thinks she's gotten away with stealing from the cookie jar. And I knew. Right there. In that goddamn kitchen under the soft glow of pendant lights we picked out together, I was done pretending. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't some identity crisis or spiritual detour. This was premeditated, sustained, compartmentalized betrayal. But what struck me, truly struck me, was how easily she wore my trust, like a second skin, how flawlessly she showed affection. She wasn't drifting away. She had docked at a new harbor and was just waiting for the right storm to make her exit dramatic enough to seem noble. That's when I stopped looking at her as my wife and started seeing her as a variable, a puzzle, a liability, a lesson. That night, I stayed up after she fell asleep, listened to her soft breathing, watched the way her hand twitched in her sleep. I wondered if she was dreaming of him. I hoped she was. I hoped she was laughing in her dreams because the fall was going to be so goddamn steep. And it wasn't rage that consumed me, it was precision. I thought about her journals, her passwords, her routines. I started logging everything. Every lie, every route, every moment of her me time. I became invisible by design, more compliant, more supportive. Because what better cover for revenge than playing the part of the forgiving husband she thought she'd broken into submission? She wanted space? I gave her oceans. She wanted growth? I gave her a greenhouse. All while tightening the noose. I watched her Instagram shift from couples photos to solo shots with vague captions like, "Healing is messy but beautiful," and "Don't let anyone dim your light." As if she was some warrior goddess reclaiming her power, not a manipulative coward camouflaging destruction with affirmations. She posted a selfie in a hotel bathroom once. I reverse searched the tiles. Same hotel, same style, same room series. 419. And she had the audacity to post it with the caption, "Me time." I almost laughed. Because she had no idea I already had the exit mapped, the keys to her downfall organized in folders on a hard drive labeled vacation plans. But that night, that one night, the key card, the fake yoga, the minty kiss, that was the breaking point. That was the death of us. Not because of what she did, but because of how I responded. With silence. With strategy. With a patience so cold it could curdle blood. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I became the ghost of a man she once knew and the architect of a reckoning she would never see coming. It began with the toothpaste. She started squeezing from the middle again. Something she hadn't done since our first year of marriage when we used to argue about small things like that before the real betrayals arrived. A tiny act, easily overlooked, but in my mind, it was the first of many unconscious confessions. I didn't confront her. I simply logged it, like I'd begun logging everything else. I bought a small notebook and titled it Patterns. Not on the front, of course. I wasn't stupid. I stashed it behind an old drywall panel in the garage, where I'd cut a slit years ago to run speaker wire and never bothered to fix. Every evening, after she fell asleep, or pretended to, I would slip out, sit on a folding chair under the harsh glow of a single bulb, and write. Notes. Timelines. Gaps. Excuses. Texts she thought she deleted. Her mileage. The receipts. The rhythm of lies has a tempo, and once you learn it, you can dance circles around the liar. The first move was digital. I created a dummy calendar entry, dinner with Marcus, and left it open on my laptop, knowing she sometimes checked it. I waited until the following Thursday, said I had that dinner, and left the house at 6 p.m. I drove 2 blocks down, parked behind a church, and walked back in the dark. 10 minutes after I left, her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. She picked it up, made a quick call, and left 20 minutes later in a different outfit. I followed her, not directly. I used a food delivery bike I borrowed from my brother, complete with a fake app vest and thermal bag. She never once looked back. I didn't follow her to the destination. That wasn't the play. Instead, I noted the turn she made onto Ridgewell Avenue. For hotels there. I cross-referenced her Uber history from our shared tablet that she forgot to log out of. Found multiple drops on Ridgewell, different dates, same 7 to 10 p.m. window. No pickups. Always walk to destination. Clever, but not clever enough. I used an online form to send her flowers from a secret admirer to her work address. She posted them on Instagram, thanking her followers for the love and support during this beautiful time of rebirth. I called her office 5 minutes later from a burner number and asked for her extension. She no longer works here, the receptionist said cheerfully. She resigned 3 weeks ago. Beautiful time of rebirth, indeed. I said nothing when she came home. I made dinner. Asked about her day. She lied effortlessly. Said she had back-to-back meetings. I massaged her shoulders afterward. Told her she deserved a break. She kissed me. I tasted dirt. From there, it was simple. I created a fake Instagram account. A man clean-cut, spiritual quotes in the bio, sunset pictures, a hint of wealth. I followed her. She followed back within the hour. He messaged her 3 days later, "You have a radiant energy." I felt it instantly. She replied, "Thank you. I've been trying to protect that energy lately." Over the course of a week, I made him just curious enough, just emotionally available enough. She shared things with him she hadn't said to me in years. He doesn't see me. I've outgrown him. I feel like I'm finally alive again. Alive, she said. Like I'd been burying her. I let her introduce that. I made him pull away once, said he was unsure, said she might still be too attached to her old life. She begged him not to go. He won't leave. He's scared of losing me. But I've already left him spiritually. Spiritually. A fascinating word to use when your husband does your laundry and pays your car insurance. I sent all the screenshots to my real phone and deleted the account. She asked me that weekend if I wanted to go on a retreat together, to reconnect. I said yes. Smiled. Even offered to book it. I chose the same resort I'd seen in one of her photos with him. A blurry corner of a hot tub with a very specific mosaic tile in the background. I called ahead. Got the same room. Room 419. She didn't notice. I brought wine. She brought her mask. I spent the weekend watching her pretend. I complimented her new dress, the one she bought on a work trip to Chicago that, according to her frequent flyer miles, never happened. She twirled in it, said she felt free. I told her she looked radiant. That night, I watched her sleep next to me in the same bed where she once whispered lies to another man. I took a photo, not of her, but of the little detail she forgot to erase, a bracelet on the nightstand, etched with initials that weren't mine. When we got home, I told her I wanted to journal together, to share and grow. She lit up, said that sounded intimate. We sat at the kitchen table and wrote in silence. She never noticed I slipped a voice recorder under the table. Just wanted to hear her tone when she lied next time. I backed up everything: texts, audio, screenshots, the GPS tracker I'd taped under her bumper. No rage. No confrontation. Just data. She thought I was healing. Thought she'd won. But I wasn't heartbroken. I was harvesting. Watching her trip over her own freedom. She didn't know it yet, but every step she took was inside a labyrinth I had built quietly, methodically, with love, because even revenge deserves to be crafted beautifully. She didn't expect me at her seminar. That was the genius of it. She had been invited to speak at a women's leadership panel, one of those TEDx-style weekend retreats filled with staged authenticity and expensive yoga pants. She'd mentioned it in passing, said she wasn't even sure if she'd go. I played along, nodded, acted uninterested. She left that Friday with her suitcase packed in a rush, hugging me like a woman torn between guilt and obligation. She never noticed the tiny GPS tag sewn into the lining of her suitcase, the one that told me exactly which boutique resort she checked into 2 hours outside the city. And I never told her I registered for the event under a different name. I didn't go to spy. I went to witness. I sat in the back of the resort conference room, 1 row behind a floral arrangement, watching her glide onto the stage in that white silk blouse she said she never wore because it was too much. That day, it wasn't too much. She wore it like armor. Confident. Glowing. She spoke about transformation after trauma, about reclaiming identity in long-term relationships, and I almost laughed at the poetic gall of it all. The room ate it up. Women clapped, some teared up, one even called her a revelation. And then, during the closing mixer in the lounge, I made my move. I didn't walk up to her. I walked up to him. Tall, smug, shirt unbuttoned one too many, leaning in close to her at the bar while she laughed that laugh I hadn't heard in months. I shook his hand. "I'm her husband," I said, quietly, politely. He froze. She turned around, and in that moment, the entire room seemed to vanish. Her wine glass trembled just slightly in her hand. "What are you doing here?" she asked, smile brittle, eyes calculating. "Supporting you," I said with a calm I didn't feel. "After all, this is the woman I married. The woman who inspires." He must think he's lucky. The guy looked between us, then said he needed the restroom. He never came back. I stepped closer. Don't worry, I said. I already know everything. His name, the hotel, the fake yoga classes, the resignation, the bracelet on the nightstand, the texts, your little online soulmate. I even know about the new bank account. Creative name, by the way. Her face drained, but her mouth moved. It's not what you think. I tilted my head, letting her think there was a way out. We were talking. He's been helping me through some things. It was never serious. I nodded slowly, watching her scramble behind her words like a drunk driver trying to hide a wrecked car behind a curtain. It was just, you weren't there. Not really. You were always busy. Distant. I felt invisible. He saw me. I smiled. So it's my fault you were lying for 7 months? She bristled. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. You never wanted to know. No, I said, I did want to know. That's why I asked. Over and over. You're the one who built a shrine of dishonesty and called it healing. She scoffed. You're acting like I murdered someone. No, I said, you just murdered trust, gaslit reality, and turned vulnerability into a weapon. That's all. She stepped back. I sharp now, voice rising just a bit. You know what? I don't regret it. I don't. He made me feel alive. You stopped seeing me a long time ago. I leaned in, my voice still soft, still surgical. No. I saw you. I saw you the moment you started becoming someone else. And I waited. I waited while you rediscovered your sparkle, hoping you'd come back. But instead, you handed your soul to a stranger and expected me to cheer. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. And that's when it shifted. That's when she realized the ground beneath her wasn't firm, it was a trapdoor, and I'd been holding the lever. I was going to tell you, she whispered. I didn't know how. You practiced a speech about feminine rebirth, I said. You knew how. You just didn't think I mattered enough to hear it. Her eyes darted, checking if anyone was watching, but the mixer was loud, full of laughter and cocktails. No one noticed the implosion unfolding 10 feet from the buffet table. So what now? She asked, voice shaky. Now, I said, pausing. Now, we finish our drinks. We smile for the nice people. And then you go back to our room and pack your things. You won't be coming home. You're ending it here? Now, she hissed. I brought you back into my life. I tried. No, I said, setting down my glass. You brought me back just enough to cushion your fall. You never once looked back because you thought I'd always be there to catch you. Consider this your final freefall. Her breath caught in her throat. You'll regret this. I smiled, stepped back. You said the same thing when I forgave you. Turns out, I do. And then I stood there, still as the air before a storm, watching her drown in the silence between us, knowing the scene hadn't ended, only paused. The reckoning hadn't even begun. She showed up 2 days later at the house like a storm that had lost its name but still thought it could tear something down. No call, no text, just the sound of her car screeching into the driveway, the front door slamming open as if she still had a right to enter like that. She wore anger like perfume, too heavy, too obvious, choking the room the moment she stepped in. You just walked away, she spat, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. No explanation, no conversation. After everything we've been through? I looked up from my coffee, not startled, not moved. Just steady. I explained enough. You just weren't listening. She laughed, sharp, cruel. Oh, that's rich. The man who hasn't touched me in months is suddenly a communicator. I didn't respond. I sipped the coffee she used to buy but stopped when she began shopping like she lived alone. You emotionally abandoned me, she snapped, stepping closer like she thought proximity equaled power. You turned into a stranger and expected me to stay in a tomb and call it home. I finally looked her in the eye. You didn't stay. You just lied while packing your escape. That shook her. She stumbled back a step, like my words had a physical weight. You smothered me, she barked. Always there, always needing things to be perfect. No space to breathe. I nodded once. You found room to breathe in someone else's bed, then. Her face twisted. You were boring. Predictable. A robot with a routine. You made me feel invisible. I set the cup down slowly, carefully, like every movement was a calculated act. Strange how I became invisible right when someone else started noticing you. She went quiet for a second, then tried a different angle. Softer. Sadder. You used to adore me. Remember that? The way you looked at me like I was the only woman in the world. I nodded. That was before I realized you were auditioning for someone else the entire time. Her lip trembled, but her eyes stayed angry. She didn't want to cry, she wanted to win. You let me drift, she accused, voice climbing. You watched me fall away and did nothing. I watched, I said. And I let you. Because love doesn't chase. Desperation does. Her breath hitched, the color in her face flickering between rage and confusion. You're not even angry, she hissed. Why aren't you yelling? Why aren't you fighting? Because you're not worth a scene, I said. You had the spotlight. You burned the stage. This is just the credits rolling. She slammed her hand on the counter. You can't just shut down like this. You can't pretend like none of it mattered. I'm not pretending, I said. It mattered. That's why it's over. Her voice dropped to a whisper, venom laced with desperation. This wouldn't have happened if you were a real man. I stood up slowly. Calm. Deliberate. I walked past her, brushing her shoulder like she was nothing more than a memory. And yet it only happened because you couldn't handle one. Her knees buckled slightly, just a flicker, but I saw it. She leaned against the island, fingers gripping the edge like it could stop her from unraveling. You'll regret this, she whispered. You'll wake up one day and realize you threw away the only person who ever loved you. I paused at the door, looked back once. You didn't love me. You loved what I gave you. And when that wasn't enough to feed your ego, you started shopping for more. Her mouth opened, then closed. She had nothing. Not a single line left that I hadn't already dismantled in my head 100 times over. You're cold, she said finally. You're broken. I smiled faintly. No. I'm healed. And that's what scares you. She started crying, then quiet at first, then louder. A messy, raw sound that once would have gutted me. But now, it just echoed in a space I no longer lived in. She called my name twice as I walked out. Once like a demand. Once like a prayer. I didn't turn back. She had burned that right with every lie she told while looking me in the eye. I got in the car. Drove away from the woman who thought love was a leash. Behind me, the house stayed standing. But inside, she was collapsing. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel anything at all. The first step was documentation. Not just text and photos. I wanted timestamps, metadata, location data, anything that couldn't be twisted or explained away with her usual, "You're overreacting" gaslighting. I spent 2 full weeks pulling copies of every receipt, message, and calendar entry that contradicted her stories. Hotel invoices sent to her personal email. Deleted messages retrieved through cloud backup she never thought I could access. Screenshots of her online chats, not just with the affair partner, but the people who helped her hide it, friends, even family. I created a master folder, encrypted it, and backed it up in 3 places: cloud, USB, and an offline drive locked in a safe at work. Then I contacted a divorce attorney. Quietly. Strategically. I met with 3 before choosing the one who smiled when I said, I don't want revenge. I want results. She told me exactly what I needed: proof of infidelity, financial records, and timeline evidence. I handed it all over in one meeting. She called it preparation. I called it justice. While the paperwork started moving through the system, I made sure the trap closed slowly. I changed the passwords to our joint accounts only slightly. Enough to delay her access when she tried to transfer money, but not enough for her to notice immediately. I opened a new account under my name only, redirected my paychecks, and withdrew half of our joint savings, the legal maximum allowed, without notification. I left her enough to avoid suspicion. I needed her calm, distracted, self-absorbed. I transferred the title of the car she drove, my car, technically, to my name only. Quietly removed her as an authorized user on the insurance. Disabled her gas card. Replaced her access badge to the gym with a deactivated version that would beep red and humiliate her just enough to wonder, but not enough to suspect me. Then came the utilities. The house was mine before we were married, prenup protected. I waited until she was out for her meditation hike and moved every account into my name. Electricity, gas, water, Wi-Fi, all redirected or resecured. Her name removed. Her digital identity inside this home erased, pixel by pixel. And still, I smiled at dinner. Still made her tea in the evenings. Still kissed her cheek while her phone lit up with messages from someone who thought he'd stolen what he didn't even understand. Then I began the social phase. I emailed her parents, polite, formal, devastating. I thought you should know what your daughter has been up to. I've attached proof. No commentary. Just truth. I did the same for her siblings and her 2 closest friends. One of them replied with a single word: damn. That was enough. I didn't need their support. I just wanted to close every door she thought she could run to once the world started collapsing. She still hadn't told anyone about our rough patch. Still living the fantasy of control. I made sure to introduce reality without screaming. I posted nothing. No cryptic memes, no passive-aggressive status updates. Just silence. But I knew she'd notice when our mutual friends started distancing themselves. When her DMs went unanswered. When her likes dropped and her phone calls hit voicemail more than usual. Then I sent the email to her HR manager. Respectful. Professional. Anonymous, but with verifiable documentation. You may want to know one of your employees has been misrepresenting company time and resources. Attached her hotel bookings and travel logs on days she reported being in office. I trust you'll know what to do. I didn't have to follow up. 3 days later, she came home early, phone in hand. Face pale. Work's going through changes, she said. I nodded. Everyone is these days. The final stage was the house. I waited until the divorce papers were processed and scheduled for service. That same day, I changed the smart locks. Packed her things with surgical precision, folded, organized, labeled, and left them in the garage, just behind the automatic door I could open from my phone when the time came. I didn't tell her. I just waited until she was at her yoga brunch, then sent the notification. You've been served. Your things are in the garage. Access expires in 48 hours. She called 10 times in a row. I didn't answer once. I just watched the security cam footage, her face crumpling as she realized it wasn't a bluff, wasn't a scare tactic. It was over. Done. Every rope she thought she held was already cut. Every step she'd taken in secrecy had been logged, analyzed, and weaponized. She stood there, screaming into the air like it owed her something. And I sat on my new balcony, sipping coffee I no longer made for anyone else, watching the clouds move, finally light, finally free. She thought betrayal made her powerful. But betrayal, when exposed under the right light, only shows how weak someone always was. She was glowing that night, draped in a deep red dress she bought for herself, as a reward for finally reclaiming her power, hair curled just enough to suggest effortless beauty, heels clicking like punctuation marks on the marble floor as we entered the venue. It was a charity gala her parents had invited us to, the kind of event where wine flows like gossip and reputations are more valuable than donations. She walked beside me like nothing had changed, like she still had a husband who adored her, parents who beamed at her, friends who admired her. But I knew none of those things were true anymore. I'd made sure of it. Her parents were already seated when we arrived, stiff and expressionless, her mother clutching a glass of white wine like a lifeline, her father staring at the entrance as if waiting for a train wreck. Her brother was there too, arms folded, jaw clenched, face carved from stone. She didn't notice the shift in the air. Not yet. She was too busy playing the part. We moved through the crowd with her usual performative grace, hugging old colleagues, smiling at former classmates, laughing a little too loud when someone complimented her latest blog post about radical love and authenticity. The irony nearly made me laugh. Then the slideshow began. A short video showcasing the event's honorees, community leaders, donors, and guest speakers. She was one of them, listed as a relationship recovery advocate. I had submitted the photo myself. The one where she's beaming at brunch, holding a mimosa and staring into the eyes of her affair partner across the table. It flashed on the screen in front of 200 people. The caption underneath read, "Helping others find honesty, one step at a time." The room fell silent. Then the second photo appeared, her lying on a beach chair, head nestled on his chest, a timestamp and location stamped at the corner. Tulum Wellness Retreat, October 3rd, the same weekend she told her parents she was home with the flu. A few gasps. A cough. Whispers began. The third photo hit like a punch, a screenshot of a message she sent to him, heart emoji and all, saying, "He'll never leave. He's too weak. I've got him right where I want him." The lights came back on. Her face was pale now, lips parted, eyes wide, blinking rapidly as if trying to wake up from a dream that had turned cruel. She looked around, searching for support, for understanding, for a lifeline. No one offered it. Her mother refused to meet her gaze. Her father stood up and left the table. Her brother slowly shook his head, then followed. She turned to me, voice low and trembling. "Did you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The MC stammered, tried to move on, but the room had already fractured. Conversations erupted in quiet, sharp tones. People stared. A few looked away out of politeness. Most didn't. She tried to laugh, forced and dry. "Okay, wow, someone really went all out for a prank, huh?" No one laughed with her. Her smile twitched, faltered, collapsed entirely. Her best friend walked past, pausing just long enough to say, You disgust me, before continuing toward the exit. The man she cheated with wasn't there, of course not. He had sent her a single message an hour before the event started, one she hadn't read yet. I saw what he sent. I'm out. Don't contact me again. Her phone buzzed in her clutch bag, but she didn't check it. Maybe she already knew. Maybe her stomach had started turning before the first slide even hit the screen. She backed away from the table like the floor had turned molten, eyes darting, breath quickening, fingers trembling as she tried to steady the wine glass in her hand. She took a sip, missed her mouth slightly. The red splashed against the bodice of her dress. She didn't even notice. This is a smear campaign, she shouted finally, too loud, too late, her voice cracking mid-sentence. You don't know the whole story. Someone near the bar muttered, we know enough. She turned toward me, eyes wild now. You planned this. You set me up. I held her gaze and said nothing. Silence is a language too, and she understood every word of mine. She staggered back a step, mascara starting to streak down her cheek, her breath coming in sharp, uneven gasps. She tried to run her hands through her hair but only tangled her fingers. She looked small now, shaken, alone. The goddess of empowerment, reduced to a fraud with nowhere to stand. And still, I stood there, watching, steady, untouched. That was the part that broke her. Not the photos, not the judgment, not even the betrayal of her inner circle. It was me, the man she thought she'd weakened beyond repair, now standing calm and composed as she unraveled in front of everyone who used to adore her. She turned one last time, eyes pleading, voice a whisper, please. I tilted my head slightly, studying her. You wanted attention, I said quietly. Now you have it. And with that, I turned away, not in retreat, but in victory. I didn't need to scream. The silence was louder than any revenge ever spoken. It happened at her sister's birthday dinner, intimate, upscale, full of people who used to adore her. A private room at a high-end restaurant, soft jazz playing, waiters in black suits gliding between tables, the kind of setting where everything is meant to stay composed and polite. She was already there when I arrived, seated next to her mother, laughing a little too loud, acting like nothing had happened. The room tensed as soon as I stepped in, conversations dipping, eyes darting, a few guests offering awkward nods. Her father gave me a silent glance and a small nod, permission, maybe. She turned, caught sight of me, and froze. That perfect little social smile cracked just a bit at the corners. You showed up, she said, voice light but laced with warning. Would have been nice to get a text. I walked over, calm but coiled tight. Would have been nice to get some truth over the last year, but I guess we're both out of luck. Her sister looked between us, confused. Her mother paled. Her best friend, who had once helped her hide the affair, suddenly became very interested in her wine glass. Can we not do this here? She muttered, through a clenched jaw, still smiling like she was on a red carpet. Too late, I said. The stage is set. She stood up then, eyes flicking around the room. We can talk outside. No, I cut her off, louder now, sharp enough to slice the air. We've talked enough behind closed doors. Let's open a few. Gasps from her aunt, whispers from the far end of the table. You're embarrassing yourself, she hissed. No, I said, I'm reminding everyone who you really are. She threw her napkin down, voice rising. You were never there for me. You worked too much, cared too little, and made me feel like a damn prop in your perfect life. Her father stood halfway from his chair but didn't move closer. You're deflecting, I said. Classic. You couldn't just own what you did. You had to rewrite history to make yourself the victim. Because I was the victim, she shouted. You shut down. You stopped being a husband long before I stopped being a wife. No, I snapped. I stopped being a husband the moment you decided another man was more exciting than honesty. You stopped being a wife when you let him into our bed in your head, long before your body followed. The room erupted, someone gasped, a wine glass clinked. Her sister stood up trying to interject. He doesn't understand what you were going through. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said. She was bored. She wanted new. So she threw away a man who built a life with her for a few months of ego-stroking and hotel dates. Her face turned red, then pale. You're pathetic, she spat. You think this makes you look strong? Standing here, crying for sympathy? I stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here for closure. Yours. Because this is the last time you get to play the victim. This is the last time you twist your betrayal into empowerment. You cheated. You lied. You tore apart a marriage, then wore the pieces like a crown and called it growth. Her voice cracked then. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. No, I said. You were supposed to keep lying. You were supposed to manipulate, gaslight, and smile your way through every consequence. But now the curtain's down, and the show's over. She lunged then, not physically, but with words meant to draw blood. Maybe if you were more of a man, I wouldn't have needed someone else. The room fell completely silent, every eye on us, her words hanging in the air like smoke. I leaned in, not loud, but deadly. And maybe if you were more of a woman, you wouldn't need to spread your legs to feel seen. Someone shouted, "Hey," in protest, but it was too late. The words hit harder than any slap. Her mother covered her mouth. Her father turned away, disgusted. Her sister sat down, eyes wide, speechless. The best friend who once covered for her? She quietly got up and walked out. Even the server had frozen mid-step. "You think you've won," she said, voice breaking now, trembling, tears threatening. "You think this makes you better?" I looked around the room, at every face that once smiled for her, now staring like they didn't recognize the woman in front of them. "No," I said. "I don't think I've won anything. I just finally stopped losing." And then I turned my back on her. Walked past the stunned crowd, through the silence that followed, not with vengeance in my heart, but with something far more powerful, peace. Behind me, she stood alone, surrounded by people who finally saw the truth, her carefully constructed world crumbling in real time. And all I left her with was the echo of her own undoing. She vanished for a while after the confrontation, like a ghost that realized it no longer belonged among the living. Her social media went dark first, deactivated, wiped, or maybe just blocked by the very people who used to comment, "Queen," under her filtered selfies and self-love quotes. Her job didn't officially fire her, but the emails stopped, the meetings excluded her, and the HR department quietly suggested she take an extended leave. Her clients, once charmed by her eloquence and polished image, began canceling one by one after screenshots of her messages made it to the right inboxes. No one wanted to be coached on authenticity by someone exposed for duplicity. Her parents didn't disown her, not formally, but they made their disappointment clear in the worst way, through silence. Her mother didn't return her calls. Her father removed her framed photo from the hallway. Her brother posted a public message online that simply read, "Betrayal doesn't start with a knife, it starts with a choice." She moved out of town shortly after. I heard she ended up in a smaller city where nobody knew her name, working the front desk at some spot that didn't care about references as long as she smiled. The affair partner? He disappeared faster than her sense of superiority. Blocked her number, deleted the chats, moved on. I'm guessing he wasn't ready to play house with someone whose drama came with a 5-act tragedy. The friends who once whispered behind my back, covering for her, turned cold too, not out of loyalty to me, but because association with her now meant social contamination. She messaged me once, a short, pathetic thing. "I still love you." I never stopped. I didn't even hesitate. I replied, "Strange. I don't even remember your name anymore." She called a few nights later, crying, slurring her words between gasps, saying she made a mistake, that she missed me, that she hated waking up to silence and sleeping next to regret. She said she'd do anything to fix it. I let her talk. I let her spill every desperate, pitiful, broken syllable into the phone. Then I hung up. No words. No comfort. Just silence. A week after that, she showed up at my door. I saw her through the peephole before she even knocked, hoodie pulled over her head, face pale, makeup smeared like war paint left over from a battle she lost alone. When I opened the door, she looked up at me with eyes that no longer held defiance or charm or control, just the hollow stare of someone who finally realized they burned the only bridge that mattered. "I don't have anyone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I was growing. I thought I was strong. But I was just selfish. And scared. And stupid. I nodded once, not in agreement, but in acknowledgement, like someone listening to a weather report after the storm already passed. "Please," she begged, her voice cracking. "Please, just talk to me. Just yell. Just hate me. Just see me." I looked her dead in the eye. "I did see you," I said, voice calm, emotionless. "That's why I left." Her breath hitched. Her hands shook. She opened her mouth to speak, but I stepped back and closed the door. Not with force, just with finality. And she stood there, on the other side, alone in the dark, finally understanding that there was no going back. No forgiveness. No path home. Not anymore. Because the truth is, redemption isn't something you get just because you're sorry. It's something you earn before the damage is done, not after. And she made her choice long before she ever realized what it cost. She just never thought she'd lose. So now, She sits in a city that isn't hers, in a life she didn't want, wondering how she ended up there. And me? I sleep easy. I wake up to peace. And I don't hate her. I don't love her. I don't feel anything. Because the best revenge isn't making someone suffer, it's watching them finally suffer alone. Thanks for listening to the story. Tell me, where are you from? And did this one hit the way you expected, or deeper?